Welcome to Christian News TY.
May it please the court. This is the state of South Carolina versus Michael Raymond Reynolds, Sumter County Public Defender's Office. Mr. Reynolds is incarcerated at our detention center on 2 warrants. Your Honor, he has a warrant for domestic violence, second degree. That warrant number is 2021A 43101000820. And also, Your Honor, it's my understanding there is a $50,000 bond.
That's correct. Magistrate Judge Kelly Jackson set a $50,000 surety bond
On the domestic violence second degree, Your Honor. And then Mr. Reynolds is also charged with the burglary first degree. That warrant number is 2021A 43101000828. I assume Judge Jackson did not or declined to set a bond on the burglary first degree. Your Honor, the offenses occurred on December the 3rd of 2021. And I assume Mr. Reynolds has been incarcerated since then. And Your Honor, I can set up the facts now or wait until, this is Mrs. Timmons' motion for a bond on the burglary first degree.
If you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and hear the facts and then I'll hear anything you want to tell me, Ms. Timmons.
Thank you.
So Your Honor, Friday, December 3rd, 2021, deputies responded to the above incident location, which is 4605 Camden Highway, regarding a burglary. Ms. Lacey Reynolds was, along with her two children, reside at that above location. And Mrs. Reynolds is, I don't know if they're still currently married or a former spouse, but the 2 children there, I believe, are their children in common, hence the domestic violence, Your Honor. She heard a man's voice. She was asleep. She woke up and discovered it was Mr. Reynolds. She called law enforcement and told law enforcement that Ms. Reynolds had entered the back door without her permission. Mrs. Reynolds, once she woke up, she told Mr. Reynolds that he does not live there, he should not be there, and he needed to leave immediately. Mrs. Reynolds said Mr. Reynolds refused to leave and began arguing. Lacey Reynolds stated that Michael Reynolds was getting really close to her and she felt threatened by him, and so she tried to she pushed him away. Then she began to call 911. Mrs. Reynolds said that Mr. Reynolds approached her again and put both of his hands around her neck. She was still able to breathe a little during that time. Was still on the phone with emergency services when Mr. Reynolds approached her again. She pushed him again. Then Mr. Reynolds took her phone away and put both of his hands around her neck. Again, she was unable to breathe at that time. And then the son pulled Mr. Reynolds away, and Mr. Reynolds left the back door. When Sheriff's Office deputies arrived on the scene, they discovered Mr. Reynolds was located in the woods behind the residence. And he actually had some injuries and scratches and things from where he went into the woods. Your Honor, more background on this case is that a couple of times before, Mr. Reynolds had come into that residence uninvited and no reports were made. I have copies of the reports and I provided copies of those to Mrs. Timmons, but no arrests were made on there were 2 other incidents, Your Honor. And while serving the warrant, Mr. Reynolds explained that she's living there with her new boyfriend. So I don't know that that is the official residence of Mrs. Reynolds, but that's where she was living with the 2 children, although the house may belong to another person. But regardless, Ms. Reynolds did not have permission to come in, and he did come in through the back door at night uninvited.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Timmons.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you, Judge. Mr. Reynolds has been incarcerated since December 3rd of last year. So long, this check has stopped. So he would ask Your Honor to set a PR bond, and I understand that the state is worried about him getting back to incident location. So if Your Honor would consider PR bond.
Sir?
Your Honor,
Hang on, I'm asking, do you need a chair?
I
Do you need to sit down?
Yeah. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's fine. We'll call out.
Thank you.
We would ask you to consider a PR bond with GPS monitoring. This way it would allow Mr. Reynolds to be released from the detention center, get his payments started, and he would be able to pay for house arrest, because I understand it's $60 a week. Your Honor, Mr. Reynolds has some mental health issues. Since he has been incarcerated, he started seeing a psychiatrist. They put him on some medication, and there really is a significant difference between Mr. Reynolds when I talked to him a couple months ago, and just last week he seemed in much better mood. He understands, recognizes that he has some mental health issues and alcohol problems. So he also reached out to Tandem Health. He told me that he has been accepted into the program, so as soon as he's released, he tells me and assures me that he will, start treatment at their facility. So if Your Honor would set a PR bond for him, we would also ask that as a condition of his bond, that he would be required to seek mental health treatment, because it really seems to be helping him. And he also informs me that if he's released, he would reside at 5215 Ridge Street in Dalzell. With his wife.
Your Honor, the issue the state has with this is, one, that Ms. Reynolds is not present today. I've never spoken to her. I just found out this was my case this morning, because actually Mr. Reynolds has 2 pending cases in our office where Mr. Corbett is the prosecutor. And he was out on bond Mr. Reynolds was out on bond from September 9th, 2021 with an attempted murder charge and possession of a weapon during a violent crime. And of course, Mr. Corbett and I didn't know these cases, and apparently when the case was assigned, there was no realization that there may be a connection between the attempted murder victim is the owner of the house where Mrs. Reynolds was living. So there's a nexus there. I don't know whether he's a friend or a boyfriend, but that's not Mr. Reynolds' business, that's Mrs. Reynolds. So my concern about having Mr. Reynolds out and perhaps going off his medication or drinking is he might go right back out there again. And with children living there and 2 other possible people, the state believes that he might be a danger to the community, or certainly to himself if he has some issues that he's barely started being treated for.
Tell me, what was the date of that previous incident, and what was the bond that he was on?
I don't have Mr. Corbett's files, Your Honor. I could go get them and bring them up to you if you want me to. But it was September 9th of 2021, so this incident happened in the beginning of December, so I took 3 months later.
And, Your Honor, I represent Mr. Reynolds on attempted murder charge. He had a bond hearing in front of Your Honor on November the 10th, and at the time, Your Honor said a $10,000 surety bond. And the victim on that case, Mr. Alan Gill, he met with our investigator, Public Defender's Office investigator, and he filled out a statement that he did not wish to take any action upon, prosecution of Mr. Michael Reynolds. He believed that the actions at that time were due to Mr. Reynolds' alcohol, anger, and brain injuries. Mr. Reynolds has a brain injury due to accidental gunshot wound to his head.
Your Honor, I'm sorry.
And
Here's my first question. Did he sign that? This was sometime November 10th. Is when I set the bond. Did this gentleman sign this affidavit before December 3rd or after December 3rd?
He signed that affidavit before December 10th. Excuse me, before December the 3rd. The date on the affidavit that I have in my system is November the 10th, 2021. So he just signed it right before his bond hearing.
And so Mr. Reynolds was released on bond sometime after November 10th.
Yeah.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay. You understand that can be a bit problematic because we've got you getting out on November 10th. And then, listen to me,
I'm
sir.
gonna get prepped with my alcoholism. I'm gonna get help. I don't need it in my life. My wife does not want to get divorced. She wants to have grandchildren.
Mr. Reynolds, listen to what I'm saying. Between November 10th and December 3rd, we're not even a month later, now we've got another incident. You may have difficulties with your wife or estranged wife.
No, not now.
Well, I'm sure there's children on the scene.
My children.
That's not a really good look for you.
I know, I need help. I'm gonna get help mentally.
And I would agree. But I'm concerned about your state of mind right now.
Oh, good. Come on,
It sounds like you're doing better.
I want to be a good member of society. I really do. I'm a great person. The Lord blesses me. I met Jesus. There is a heaven, and we are going to be
Mr.
there.
Reynolds, you're seeing someone with tandem right now?
Yes, I saw her. Yes, I saw her the other day. And as soon as I get out, I call them. I'm going to be there the next day, and I get to go at
You've
least
got some
twice a week.
medication now that you're on?
I'm on medication, yes, and it helps with depression, and it helps me think of life differently, because you think of life different when you blow a third of your brain out. You look at life different, and I did, and I don't look at that way no more. I'm in debt to society. I'm paying in debt right now because I made a mistake. I do not want to make those mistakes anymore. I'm not drinking no more. I'm not smoking weed. I'm not smoking cigarettes. I'm not wasting money on any of that stuff. I'm buying my kids a four-wheeler. We're gonna have fun. I want to be someone my kids admire.
Hold on just a minute. I had a thought, I had a question. Is there a no contact order with the November bond? I feel like.
Monday, I'm going to the prosecutor, and my wife is gonna drop the charges.
Stop, just a minute, let me find out the answer to this.
I'm so sorry, I do not have this, you mean on the DV or on the?
On the November attempted murder.
I don't, Mr. Corbett is here, but we don't have his files up here, so we have to get the files from.
I understand she wasn't the victim in that, it was the other.
Yes, Your Honor, it was Mr. Gill, and Your Honor ordered that Mr. Reynolds has no contact with the victim and that he is not allowed to return to the incident location.
Mr. Reynolds, it sounds to me like you are doing better.
I am.
The problem that I have is we already had you released on bond previously with the condition that you not return to the incident location.
I know,
And then we're right back in the same
My
situation.
son will testify.
I don't think we're worried want you to tell.
My wife was letting me stay there.
Sir, it doesn't matter if she was letting you stay there. I made an order of the court that you not return to the incident
I'm
location.
so sorry.
So it's not her order, it's mine.
Okay.
So what I'm going to say is, I'm going to continue to deny the bond for now. While you are incarcerated, you need to continue your mental health treatment. And let's reevaluate. If your case hasn't resolved in 90 days, I will reevaluate it and we'll see where you stand.
I'm gonna do 3 more months in jail.
I don't know how long you're going to have to do, but
I wanted to go to Tandem and talk to a psychiatrist a couple times a week and do that.
well, all I can tell you is continue following your psychiatric care while you're in the detention center, and we'll revisit it in 90 days. We'll see how you're doing.
Thank you, Your
Your
Honor.
Honor, please help me. Please let the judge, please let the Lord help me, please. Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. That's my decision.
This is Christian News TY. I'm Tony Conyers. Is there any newsworthy events? We will get them to you as soon as possible. If not, you can follow us on Christian News TY Facebook. You can follow us on YouTube, and you can follow us on our website.
Is True Document 2020 GS43-0356, True Document for breach of trust, 2 to 10 under the enhancement provision. Your Honor will note that she is currently in jail. She just picked up a bench warrant. Between her bench warrant and her initial bond out, we have 15 days served. The state is making a recommendation for 6 months. Wishing to approach.
Ma'am, raise your right hand. State your name.
Jennifer Marie Atkinson.
You solemnly swear affirm the testimony of the court shall be the truth. Both of them are the truth, say together.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Atkinson, I'm Judge Curtis. Ma'am, I understand that you're here today to plead guilty to breach of trust with a value between $2,000 and $10,000. This is under our enhancement statute, meaning it's a third or subsequent property offense, and so it carries up to 10 years. Is that your understanding?
Yes, ma'am.
You got a chance to discuss this with Ms. Timmons?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you satisfied with what your attorney's done for you?
Yes, ma'am.
You're not under the influence of any drugs or alcohol today?
No, ma'am.
Has anyone promised you anything to try to get you to plead guilty?
No, ma'am.
Has anybody forced you, threatened you, or coerced you in any way?
No, ma'am.
You're waiving some constitutional rights today. You've got a constitutional right to remain silent. If your case went to trial, nobody could force you to testify. When you plead guilty, you're waiving that constitutional right. You understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
You have a constitutional right to a trial by jury, to let 12 citizens hear your case and let them decide whether you're guilty or not guilty. When you plead guilty, you're waiving the right to a jury trial. You understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
In a trial, the state always has the burden of proving you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And all 12 jurors have to agree that you're guilty before you can be convicted. You waive those rights today.
Yes, ma'am.
In a trial, you would also get the chance to confront the state's witnesses. They would testify in open court. Your attorney could ask them questions on cross-examination. You could present a defense on your behalf, and you could subpoena your witnesses to come to court and testify. Again, you waive those rights today.
Yes, ma'am.
Knowing all of your rights, Ms. Atkinson, are you pleading guilty or not guilty?
I'm pleading guilty.
Your Honor, may it please the court, this is from January 5th, 2020. Patrick Lanning contacted law enforcement informing them that Ms. Atkinson had borrowed his 2005 blue and colored Jeep, which was valued at over $2,000, and had a cell phone in it to go to the store and come right back. That he had let her borrow that on the 3rd and still had not returned. So he indicated he wished to pursue charges for this. On January 7th, law enforcement actually made contact with that Jeep. It was being driven by a different person who informed them that he had borrowed it from a Robert Dinkins, and Robert Dinkins said he had got it from a white girl. Law enforcement ultimately took custody back of the Jeep, and law enforcement met with the victim. He did identify Jennifer Atkinson, also known as Jennifer Atkinson Cruz, as the person who had taken the Jeep with and kept it further than was allowed. Your Honor, her criminal history has at least 2 prior property offenses. She's actually got a pretty extensive history and bad history on probation, bad drug history essentially. So, Your Honor, we don't think probation is an appropriate remedy in this case. In 6 months was us attempting to balance the scales on that.
Are those facts true, Ms. Atkinson?
Yes, ma'am. To a certain extent, but yes, ma'am.
Well, not so much your history, but with respect to
What
this
happened?
incident with the Jeep.
He was my neighbor, and he let me use his car several times, and he always got it back. My husband agreed.
Well, I mean, here's the issue.
Okay.
If you tell me you're not really guilty, then that's when you need to have a trial.
I'm guilty of taking the car and not returning it when I was supposed to, yes. That I am guilty of.
Okay, I mean, that's kind of the whole
Yes, ma'am.
crux of the
Yes, ma'am.
offense, is to something that wasn't yours and you didn't return it.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
assuming from what the solicitor's telling me, they're not saying you stole it. It's breach of trust because someone entrusted you with it and then you broke that trust by not returning it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I do find that there's a sufficient factual basis for me to accept the plea. And I find that you're entering the plea today freely and voluntarily, understanding your rights, and with the advice of Ms. Timmons, who's a very competent attorney. You've got 10 days from today's date if you wanted to appeal. Ms. Timmons, I'm glad to hear from you.
Judge, we would just ask Your Honor to give Ms. Atkinson credit for the 15 days that she served so far on this charge and lived the bench warrant.
This would, in our agreement as well, live with it.
Ms. Atkinson,
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, it sounds like you've got a drug issue that you're struggling with.
Yes, ma'am. I've been in rehab twice. I lost my mom and my father within the last 6 months to an overdose. So it's been really hard. And I want to continue to get help. I just recently was at Sadie's Hope and Prosperity, and I wish to return there
when all is said and done. I've already talked to Maria and she's gonna let me come back. I was a residential leader. It's just, I had some things with my kids that happened and I fell off the wagon again with just alcohol, but it's still not the life that I want. I lost my mom, like I said, to an overdose January 8th, and then June 29th, I found my dad in the bathroom. It took his life due to drugs. And that's not the life I want anymore. It really isn't.
Well, you can't finish your sentence until you start it. So you're here today, getting that behind you. We've seen people in really terrible circumstances who've been able to overcome their addiction issues. It happens. We've seen really amazing success stories where people have overcome it. Relapse is not uncommon. Sometimes it takes multiple times. I don't want you to think because you've tried it again, because you've tried rehab and then you fell off wagon that means it's, you're never going to get figured out. Sometimes it takes multiple times of doing rehab. Honestly, sometimes it takes that you have alienated everybody who would have otherwise bailed you out, and then it's like you kind of left to your own devices, and then something kind of clicks. Hang in there. Sounds like you've been through a lot this past year. I hope at least while you're incarcerated, you'll stay clean and sober, and then you'll have a good little period of time of sobriety under your belt, getting out. Just hang in there. Keep trying.
Yes, ma'am.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.